Hey guys, how you doing? Okay, I've been looking at the slides, and I'm now of the opinion that I'm not as far behind as I thought. In fact, it's possible that I could have gotten everything done in Wednesday's class. But to do that, I probably would have had to hoof a little bit, and so really what this allows me to do is get through Chapter 6 in a more relaxed way, I think, and so that's what we're going to do. So let's jump back. Actually, I think we left Chapter 6 here on slide 9. So here we were just talking about, you know, some of the ways you can reward and punish behavior, and following the textbook, because I prefer this better, I had actually changed this in line with the textbook to say positive punishment. You know, that sounds like a weird term, doesn't it? Positive punishment. And negative punishment. But it doesn't, again, just to make you make this make sense. It does make sense if you think of punishment in the sense of something negative happens, and something negative can happen either by adding something negative, positive, so actually adding something negative to the person's world, or by subtracting something good, like when your mom takes your cell phone away, for example, if they would dare do such a thing. Both of those things are negative events, or negative emotional events. You know, they both don't feel like success. They feel like the opposite of success. They're punishments of a sort, and so therefore both of them, if you do some behavior and that's what happens, you're less likely to do it again in the future, and that's where you see the increase. These two increase behavior, these two decrease behavior. Okay. Yeah. Also, let me remind you of this terminology of aversive and appetitive, because this is also terminology you'll see in this chapter. So aversive means something that you don't like, that you would rather avoid, whereas appetitive means something you do like. So that you would approach, or you would enjoy. Okay, so I think we're good about this, and the general philosophy is just, of course, if you do something and something good follows, you're more likely to do that again in the same situation. If something bad follows, you're less likely to do it again in the same situation. So this is just getting more specific about what we mean by good or bad. Okay, so now let's move on. So this is one of the fun things. This is where I like to give you guys homework of a sort. It's a weird sort. The sort is how to condition your professor. And I always pick on the biology professors here because I know that there's a lot of students in our class that are also in biology, intro biology. But if there's any other big class a lot of you guys are in, you could try it there as well. In fact, I think the biology prof may catch on because I do this to them a lot. So here's the idea. If you want to use operant conditioning to create a pretty extreme behavior, something a person or an animal wouldn't normally ever do on its own, you can still do it if you use something called shaping. So let me just back up. You know, usually rewards, the way I've talked about rewards and punishments so far, they're really good for, you know, waiting till the animal does something and then rewarding it or not, and then changing the likelihood. But what if you want an animal to do something it doesn't ever do? You know, you can't wait for a dolphin to jump through a burning hoop. Dolphins do not jump through burning hoops. So how do they make them jump through burning hoops? Well, they use shaping. And so let me start with your teacher, your bio prof, and then let's talk about some of these other examples. Here's how shaping would work. I just want to start with a nice concrete example. I'm your bio prof. So if I'm talking to you, the best reward you can give me is your attention. And the biggest punishment you can give me is to withdraw your attention. So notice that would be negative punishment, right? If you take away something I want, your attention, that's negative punishment. So you can use positive reinforcement and negative punishment in the following way. Let's say you want your professor to be more over here on this side of the class. Well, professors will generally meander, right? They'll generally go back and forth. And so if you do the following, you wait till the professor's over on this side of the room at first, and you pay attention to them. You look at them. What they're saying is the most fascinating thing you've ever heard in the world. That is like very attractive to a professor. And so, you know, that's rewarding. So you're rewarding them for being over there. If they drift over here, then kind of put your head down and kind of look like you're daydreaming and kind of stop paying attention until they come back over here. And if they come back over here, give them your attention again, really hard. What you should find is pretty soon you've just got them preferring this side of the room. And by the way, they may not know that anything's going on. They may just feel like, wow, this feels good. I'm going to teach from over here. But they may not even realize it's linked to their behavior. Okay, this is when it gets fun though. Once you've got them reliably on that half of the room, don't stop there. Change your criteria. Get a little tougher. So now it's not good enough to be on this side of the room. You want them way over on this side of the room. So you've already got them sort of hanging around over here. Now use the same trick. If they hang out way over here, start rewarding them. Like start really rewarding them with your attention. You find it fascinating when they're way over there. But if they come back towards the middle, they lose your attention again. If you keep doing that, you keep changing your reward to ask for more and more and more extreme behavior. If you do it well and they don't catch on to what you're doing, you can have that professor almost glued to the wall by the time you're done with them. They could be leaning against the back wall and feeling like they're the best professor in the world, and you may have shaped their behavior in that direction. Okay? This is the way a lot of trainers, and by the way, good point to say that operant conditioning is the basis of virtually all animal training. You know, there's almost always treats, there's almost always rewards for doing the right behavior. So for example, with dolphins, if they want dolphins to go through that burning hoop, again, no dolphin will ever do that. But if you start by putting the hoop in the water, quite a bit in the water, and you just kind of watch, let the dolphin swim around, what you might notice is the dolphin at some point will swim through the hoop, just out of curiosity. You know, dolphins are curious critters, they might just swim through the hoop. Immediately you give them a fish. Give them a reward for doing that. All right, they swam through the hoop, they get a reward. They will very quickly learn to swim through the hoop to get fish. That's a natural behavior. Then you start lifting the hoop out of the water. So now they have to go through the hoop, but they have to kind of get out of the water to do it. And you only reward them for kind of jumping out of the water and through the hoop. And then you give them the fish again for doing that. But then you change the rules again. You ask for a more extreme behavior. You lift the hoop higher. And eventually, of course, you're going to have that hoop quite a bit out of the water, and you'll have the dolphin jumping up and jumping through the hoop. Because that's what they're going to have to do to get the fish. If they swim under the hoop, you won't give them a fish. So you keep making the criteria for a reward higher and higher and higher. And then at some point, maybe you even have a hoop that lights up, perhaps. That might be a middle step. And if they're willing to jump through that lit hoop, you give them a fish. But when it's not lit, you don't. So they learn, okay, when the hoop's lit, I get a fish for jumping through. And then at some point, you might want to shift that to fire instead of light, and you could eventually get the dolphin jumping through a burning hoop. Okay, so you get the idea. What shaping is about is you start by rewarding the organism in a certain way, but then through what we call successive approximation, by moving closer and closer to that extreme behavior and changing the rewards. Now you only get a reward for doing something a little more extreme, and then a little more extreme. You can make this animal behave in ways it would never behave otherwise. Okay, you can completely shape them with the reward behaviors. This is why when I talk about karate, karate uses this explicitly. There are different belt systems, yellow, orange, green, brown, blue, black, etc. They're related to how well you can do something. And when you're just starting out, as long as you can sort of do it, they'll reward you and they'll give you a belt and they'll say, okay, that's great. Way to go. Nice effort. But once you're at that level, now that effort isn't good enough anymore. If you keep performing at that yellow belt level, they will never reward you with a higher belt. They won't give you the orange belt. To get the orange belt, you have to now take those behaviors but do them even better. You have to get better than you were at the yellow. And when you get better, then you get that next reward. Now you have to get better again. Okay, so they're always rewarding, you know, a more and more difficult behavior on your part. But that's one way of sort of motivating this animal and bringing them along, animal or human, and bringing them along to get to the point you want to. Okay? Try that with your prof. Give it a go. Remember, your attention is powerful, very powerful. Okay, let me know how that goes. I'll ask back in class, get a report. All right. Let me tell you about something else. Man, there's so many experiments these behaviorists did, and I'm just going to try to give you a sense of some of the really important ones. And this one, it's kind of boring in a way, but I think if I turn it into flirting, I can make it less boring. So I'll go there in a second. But let me tell you the general question and the general findings, and I really want to get you thinking about what we're going to call variable rewards or random rewards and how powerful they can be. But let's get there. So the question here is, how do you reward the animal? And let me just stay with the ratios for now because they're the easiest to think about, and the fixed ratio is the most easiest to think about. Let's say you are going to reward some animal for doing something, but you want it to, well, let me just walk you through the fixed ratio. If we had a rat, for example, in a Skinner box, and we want it to press the bar, we want it to learn how to press the bar. One way we could do that, of course, is have a hungry rat. So the rat's hungry. Again, he goes into the cage at first, and he's just kind of mucking around, doing whatever he does. But he might occasionally touch that bar. Okay, and if he happens to touch the bar, click, food pellet drops down, and he eats that food pellet. Okay, and then maybe he's wandering around for a while more, and he happens to hit the bar, and a food pellet comes down. He munches it out. It will not take him long to realize that, oh, if I press that bar, I get a food pellet. And before long, you will see the rat intentionally click on the bar, eat the food pellet. Click on the bar, eat the food pellet. He has learned that behavior. He'll learn it really quick if you reward after every bar press, sort of as I just described. But you might also say, no, he's got to press the bar twice before he gets a reward. Or he has to press it 3 times before he gets a reward. Okay? What you will see here is a really fascinating kind of behavior, and it's not really shown very nicely by this. I don't really like this graph, but let me just tell you about it. You'll ultimately get a rat that does behavior bursts. So here's what I mean. Let's say you need to press the bar 4 times before a reward comes down. First of all, it will take the rat a lot longer to learn that. You know, he has to randomly, originally hit it 4 times before a reward comes. So that can take a long time, but he will learn it. And when he learns it, here's what you'll see him do. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pellet drops. Munch, munch, munch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pellet drops. So you see what we call behavior bursts. When the rat clues in that it has to do something so many times to get a reward, it does that, gets the reward, then chills for a while. Okay? Then goes back to the task, hits it 4 times, gets the reward, chills for a while. Okay. All good so far? Let's bring in the variable. Variable's the same idea. Let's stick with the 4. On average, they have to press the bar 4 times to get a reward. But we're now going to make it variable. And what that means is it won't be exactly 4. It might be, let's say, 4 plus or minus 3. So sometimes they're going to have to just hit it once, and they're going to get a reward. Sometimes they're going to have to hit it 7 times to get a reward. They don't know if it's once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. They don't know how many times. They know on average it's 4. They might figure out sort of on average it's 4. But it varies quite a bit. And so they're never sure. What do you see here? This is when you see the strongest behavior. Okay? It leads to rapid and constant responding. So the rat presses until it gets a reward, it eats the reward, and it starts pressing again right away until it gets a reward, it eats a reward, starts pressing again right away. This is the strongest behavior. Why? Well, the idea here is that when it's variable like this, the animal isn't sure when a reward is coming, and they might start to think that it's almost always, it's always the case that the reward is almost there. The reward starts to feel like it's always just a button press away, because sometimes it is just a button press. Even if I just got a reward, sometimes it's still just a button press away. And so it's like the animal is pulled to that possibility that there's a reward right around the corner. Okay. I talk about this with slot machines. This is exactly what slot machines do. You pull that arm down. Sorry, you put your money in, you pull that arm down. You're going to have to do that so many times, and a reward will come. All these machines must pay off, but they use random rewards, which means, again, it could be that you get paid off and you just put in money another 3 or 4 times and you get paid off again right away. You get a big jackpot right away. Or it could be that you put a ton of money in before you ever get a jackpot. Here's what this does to people. It's really powerfully psychologically. Even though they win, they still think that next jackpot might be just around the corner. So that pushes them to start playing again almost immediately. And then, the longer it goes before they win, so if they're not winning, they get this feeling like, man, I'm due. It's got to be right around the corner now. And it's like the longer it goes, the more convinced they get that the reward is just around the corner, just that next pull. And so that keeps them at the machine, responding and responding and responding, even though they're not getting rewarded. They feel like that reward is just about here. So it's a very powerful kind of learning. So let me kind of do this flirting thing to you, because I want to come back to this, and the flirting is a good example for the last point I want to make. So let's say you're, come to Intro Psych, I teach you how to flirt. That's what we do. So let's say you walk around the campus, and every now and then you see this other individual, this other person. You sense this person's interested in you. You like them too. You think they might be interesting, but you don't want to be easy, right? You got to make a bit of a game out of it. So what's the kind of game? Well, first of all, let me give you the sort of ridiculous fixed ratio scenario. You could decide, I'm going to take my Intro Psych things and I'm going to use a fixed ratio reward system, which means I'm going to walk by this person and I know they're going to smile at me, because that's what they do. They kind of look at me and they smile. I am going to make them smile 4 times. I'm not going to smile back. First 3 times, I'm not going to smile back. 4th time, I'm going to smile back. Okay? And then the next 3 times I see him, I won't smile. 4th time, I'll smile back. What will you see them do? Well, maybe you'll see them go and try to smile at you 4 times quick. Hey, I don't know how to smile 4 times quick. But you may see those behavior bursts where they try to get in a couple of different smiles on one reward, hoping to get that smile back, because that smile back is important to them. And they know you will smile back. And they've learned, oh, I have to smile so many times before they smile back. But once you do smile back, they kind of relax. Got to smile back. So that's the chill out kind of period. Now, what you should do is use a variable ratio. Well, for now, I'll say what you should. I'll tell you the danger in a moment. But if you use a variable ratio, you say, oh, every 4th time on average that they smile at me. But sometimes it'll be just 1 time. Sometimes it'll be 7 times. This is when you're going to get them the most interested. Sometimes they smile at you and you smile back immediately. Sometimes they smile at you and you kind of ignore them. You smile at you again, you kind of ignore them. But eventually you smile back. And so they start to get to know, well, she is going to smile back, or he is going to smile back. But I'm not sure when. It's like, it could be the next time I smile at them, they'll smile back. And so this will be the kind of reward system that will keep this person trying to smile at you every chance they get. It will get them sort of most strongly interested in you. Okay? Woof, I just taught you how to be, I don't know, irresistible. You're welcome. There you go. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. But everybody's cool so far. The big difference, of course, with the variable ratio is you don't get those relaxations. Because a person, even though they got the reward, thinks they might get a reward on that next trial. So they're right back at the game. Okay? Cool. What about these other things, the intervals? I'm going to mention them quickly, but I'm going to stick to the ratios because the ratios are a little more clear. But the intervals suggest that you don't have to base your reward on how many times they responded. You can also reward an animal if they are responding after a certain interval. So you can kind of check in on the animal every now and then. And if the animal is doing what it's supposed to be doing, you give them a reward. Okay? Now, first thing you see, by the way, with these intervals is it doesn't tend to lead to as powerful a behavior. So you see these lines are flatter. So with the ratios, you tend to get more powerful learning. With the intervals, not as powerful. So the animal never engages in the behavior as much. But there's an interesting thing that happens with the fixed interval. We'll get to the variable. Let me just do the fixed interval. Imagine you had the following. So let's put this in a real world situation. You work in a place with a bunch of cubicles, and you're one of the many people in the cubicles. And you have this manager that knows, hey, people goof off in the workplace. So I better go out every now and then and make sure they're not goofing off. Okay. You know, this is look busy, the boss is coming kind of thing. But let's say we have a boss that uses a fixed interval. What would be a fixed interval? Well, it would be a boss that says, okay, every half an hour, I'm going to go do my little walk around. Half an hour on the half hour. So at half past, I'll do it. At the hour, I'll do it. At half past, I'll do it, etc. What's going to happen? What are you going to do? Well, it's not going to take long for the employees to realize the boss comes out exactly every 30 minutes. And so what do? Just before a boss is coming, they work like heck. They look like they're in their computer. They're stressed out. Oh, so much work. Working hard, doing all this kind of stuff. And then the boss walks, you know, they see the boss go by and they're working really hard. And they see the boss walking around a little bit more and they're working really hard. And the boss goes into his office and closes the door and they go, and they start goofing off. All right, let me see. Where's my phone? Let's see what my friends are up to right now. Excellent. That's cool. And they just, you know, goof off until the next 30 minutes. Then they start working really hard again because they know the boss is going to come out. That's what this is trying to show, that they're working really hard till the boss comes out, and then they kind of goof off. And then they work really hard till the boss comes out, and then they goof off. So this would be like an animal learning that if I'm pressing the bar when they check in on me, and I know they're going to check in on me on these regular basis, I will press the bar a lot right around the time they're going to come check in on me. But then once I get the reward, I'm going to chill until I think it's time again, and then I'm going to start behaving really hard. So again, you're going to see these bursts happen in that way. Again, you can get rid of the bursts by making it variable. So a clever boss does not come out every 30 minutes. They come out anywhere between, you know, let's say 5 minutes since they've been out up to maybe an hour since they've been out. And you're never sure. Because you're never sure when that boss is going to start walking around, then you have to be working all the time. But you tend to work in a more chilled out way. So you get your work done so that when the boss comes, you're certainly working. You're not trying to impress your boss that you're working like a demon. You tend to work in a more smooth way because you can't just work like a demon all day long, right? So you can't act that way all day long. So you just work in a sort of slower way. Boss comes by, at least you're working. Looks like you're busy. You know, that's how things go. So that's the idea. You can reward based on intervals instead of ratios. Let me go back to the ratio though. And let me go back to the variable ratio, and let me go back to flirting. We know this variable ratio way of rewarding is very powerful, and it really gets responses really high. I'll give you a workplace example of variable ratio, just so to try to make it make sense. This could be more like commission, but imagine a commission where you sold, I don't know, whatever you want to sell. Let's say cars. But every fourth car you sell, you get a big bonus. A big chunk of commission for selling 4 cars. But it's not exactly 4 cars. If it was exactly 4 cars, then you're going to try to get this ratio thing going, right? You're going to try to sell 4 cars and then you're going to relax. You're going to try to sell 4 cars and you're going to relax. But maybe it's 4 plus or minus 3. And so you sell so many cars, you get a bonus. But maybe if you just sell 1 more car, you're going to get that big bonus again. Okay? So it's still ratio. But in this case, you're going to be this would be the most powerful way an employer could set up a system for their employees to get the strongest behavior out of them. Okay. Makes for the strongest behavior. But it does other things. Okay, so first of all, that's other things I'll come to. I just made you this because this schedules of reinforcement's a little tricky. So I just threw this in for you to get practice. So based on what I just said, try to think of these things in terms of what kind of schedule of reinforcement. So let's just pick one. Let's pick 14, buying lottery tickets. What is that? What schedule of reinforcement? Well, I would say that's a variable ratio. And by the way, people buy a lot of lottery tickets. So what that means is you buy these tickets, and if you buy 20 tickets, maybe you'll get a reward from buying 20. But you never know. It might be the next ticket you buy that gets you that next reward, right? And so you don't feel like, okay, I got to buy 20 more tickets to get that reward. You keep feeling like the reward is right around the corner. So try that for some of these other ones, and try to get an idea whether they're random or fixed, and whether they're ratios or intervals. Okay, kind of think about that a little bit. Okay, but I want to return. Variable ratios are the strongest. They are the strongest, but they're the strongest two ways. They build the strongest behavior, but they also are the most resistant to extinction. So what do we mean by this? Forget about the slide for a second, just listen to me about flirting. Let's say you followed my advice. There was this person, you variably rewarded their attention by paying attention back every now and then, but you added that variable component. Now you got them really, really interested in you because they think, oh, this person shows an interest in me every now and then, and I never know when. But suddenly you decide, you know what, I don't like that person anymore. They're kind of bugging me. Whatever. I am going to ignore them. I am never going to give them attention if they attend to me. So that's in your terms, you are doing an extinction procedure. You're no longer going to reward that behavior. Here's the problem. Because they never know when a reward is coming, they're never convinced that one isn't coming. So let me say it a different way. If you had used the fixed ratio, if you had attended to them every fourth time they attended to you, then, and once you decide I'm not going to attend to them anymore, well, they would attend to you 4 times and they'd be expecting a reward, but it wouldn't be there. And they'd be, usually I pay attention to them 4 times and they pay attention back. Okay, let me do that again. And so they would pay attention 4 times really quick, right? Because they would use a burst in that case. But you don't pay attention back. So they pay attention 4 times. You don't pay attention back. They are going to come to the opinion like, wow, this person doesn't like me anymore. They're not paying attention back. But the important point is they're going to clue in to that. I have a fire alarm going, which is nice. But I'll make this point real quick. If you had them on a variable ratio, now, you know, they respond 4 times, you don't respond back. 5 times, they don't respond back. 6 times, they don't respond back. Just like I told you earlier, the longer it goes without them getting a reward, the more persistent they get. The more sure they are there's a reward right around the corner. So, the point is, with variable ratios, yes, you can get them behaving really tough, but then they get almost addicted. They have a hard time not engaging in that behavior. That's exactly why they do this in gambling facilities, and this is why gambling is an addiction. Okay? All right. I'm going to shut up now because the fire alarm is going, and I believe that's the end of that slide. So I'm just going to stop right there. Thank you very much. That's cool. Bye-bye.